back with another update. In this episode, I'll cover the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Belarus prisoner releases, illegal immigration-related news, the crackdown on crime in D.C., and Special Attorney Ed Martin's investigations. Of course, I'll end with the noteworthy tidbits. President Trump met with Russian President Putin in Alaska on Friday to see if a peace deal with Ukraine can finally be negotiated. Zelensky was upset he wasn't included in this meeting, and Trump made it clear that he's not there to negotiate for Ukraine, that territory swaps are Ukraine's decision, and that he's only trying to bring both parties to the table. Before their meeting, Trump said, "I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. I'm in this to stop the killing." Before traveling to America for the first time in about a decade, Putin honored the USA-Soviet alliance during World War II against Germany and the Axis by laying flowers at the Heroes of ALSIB Memorial. President Trump said that if no deal is made with Zelensky following the meeting, there will be economically severe consequences, and the Kremlin said they expect the talks to last 6 to 7 hours and that they do expect results. Both presidents arrived in Alaska, meeting on a red carpet while a B-2 bomber and USA jets flew overhead. The meeting was 3-on-3, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff joining Trump, and it ended up lasting only 3 hours, with the Russians saying it went very well. A press conference followed the meeting, during which Putin said, "When President Trump says if he was the president back then, there would be no war, it would indeed be so. I can confirm that." Putin invited Trump to Moscow for their next meeting someday, and Trump said he'd call Zelensky and NATO regarding the day's talks, saying, "There's no deal until there's a deal. It's ultimately up to them." Before departing Alaska, President Trump took time to show respect to service members outside Air Force One, and President Putin placed flowers at the graves of the Soviet pilots in Alaska and made the sign of the cross. These pilots were allied to the U.S. during World War II and helped defeat the Axis. Trump arrived back in D.C. after the 20-hour ordeal and announced that he'd called NATO and Zelensky. Trump said the conversations went well and offered to attend the next meeting with Putin and Zelensky. The leaders all agreed that the best way to end the war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, versus a ceasefire agreement, which we all know doesn't hold up oftentimes. Zelensky and President Trump are meeting in the Oval Office as I record this, and they will hopefully decide to schedule a meeting with the two of them and Putin to finalize a peace agreement. Trump said he'd like to host both Putin and Zelensky as early as Friday, and that Russia essentially wants control of 2 territories in eastern Ukraine, and Ukraine wants a guarantee that Russia won't come back for more. Trump and Zelensky were joined by Vice President Vance and several European leaders for the meeting today, including German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, French President Emmanuel Macron, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Reports are saying that President Trump supports Putin's proposal to give Russia full control of the Donbas region in exchange for full peace with Ukraine, but that Zelensky declared it's impossible for him to give up any land to Russia. Steve Witkoff announced that to get a peace deal with Russia, instead of granting Ukraine NATO membership, the U.S. and European countries can offer Ukraine Article 5-like protections, which is a strong security guarantee. Reports also say Zelensky is pleased with the security guarantees, and as Marco Rubio explained, those security guarantees are what will prevent Putin from breaking the peace agreement. I'm sure by the time this episode reaches you, we will know if the meeting was a success or not. Senator Lindsey Graham floated introducing a bill with Senator Blumenthal that would designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, and Trump revealed that Putin told him mail-in voting is causing our elections to become rigged. This isn't really new information, and Trump was already pushing to ban it nationwide, but it's now a topic of conversation again. Congressman Andy Ogles is drafting a nomination of President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize after his meeting with Putin, and in surprising news, Hillary Clinton said, "Honestly, if he could bring about the end to this terrible war, if he could end it without putting Ukraine in a position where it had to concede its territory to the aggressor, could really stand up to Putin, something we haven't seen, but maybe this is the opportunity. If President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize. Because my goal here is not to allow capitulation to Putin." When Brett Baier told Trump Hillary had said that, Trump responded with, "Well, that was very nice. I may have to start liking her again." On to Belarus prisoner releases. President Trump spoke to the president of Belarus to thank him for releasing 16 prisoners and to discuss the release of 1,300 additional prisoners. As Trump pointed out, the news isn't talking about this, so I'll go ahead and explain what this is about. As of July 2025, over 1,184 political prisoners, including 175 women, are being held in Belarus, according to the Vyasna Human Rights Center. The number fluctuates due to ongoing detentions, releases via pardons, or completion of sentences, and these individuals include bloggers, journalists, human rights defenders, activists, and ordinary citizens detained for political motives, often without fair trials. The Belarusian regime under Alexander Lukashenko uses vague charges like extremism, treason, or organizing mass unrest to silence dissent, and the demographics of the prisoners include 250 journalists and media workers, 370 students and academics, 95 cultural workers and artists, over 600 peaceful protesters and civil society activists, and dozens of former presidential campaign staff. Prisoners face harsh conditions, including torture, solitary confinement, forced labor, and denial of medical care. At least 8 political prisoners have died in custody since 2020, often due to inadequate medical treatment. Over 224 prisoners are at high risk due to serious health issues, disabilities, or age, and some prisoners are held incommunicado with no access to lawyers or family. Let's switch to illegal immigration-related news. President Trump is deploying over 4,000 U.S. Marines and sailors to the waters around Latin America to go after cartels, according to CNN, and Butler County, Ohio Sheriff Richard Jones announced the arrest of 2 illegal alien sex predators in conjunction with ICE. Federal agents are working with Metro Police in Washington, D.C. in patrolling the streets, and if an illegal alien is encountered, they're turned over to ICE since sanctuary policies no longer apply. ICE referred Connecticut State Representative Corey Paris to the Department of Justice after he doxed ICE's live location on Instagram, alerting illegals in the area, and it was found that the population of Huntington Park, California is 45% illegal alien, 96 of which are Latino. The city has gone quiet, with business owners keeping their doors locked in fear of incoming ICE raids. An illegal alien semi-truck driver from India, who got his CDL in California, attempted an illegal U-turn on Florida's Turnpike near Fort Pierce, causing a crash that killed 3 people. He has been arrested for vehicular homicide and will be deported. Shifting to the crackdown on crime in D.C. Washington, D.C. sued President Trump to stop his federal takeover of the city's police, so they're basically suing to reinstate crime. The case was assigned to a Biden-appointed judge, and control of the D.C. police was handed back to the police chief. Of course, Democrats have paid protesters to fight Trump's crackdown on crime, which goes to show how gross the Democrat Party really is right now. Actual residents of Washington, D.C. have come out in full support of the federalization, taking to social media to express how much safer they feel now. 75 homeless encampments have been cleared out, and dozens of illegal aliens have been arrested. Attorney General Pam Bondi deputized U.S. Secret Service and Metro PD transit officers as special deputy U.S. Marshals, giving them the authority to arrest criminals, and West Virginia, Ohio, and South Carolina are deploying some of their National Guardsmen to D.C. Protesters have been interfering with federal agents and National Guardsmen, and National Guard troops may soon start carrying weapons. An RMG poll found that Americans support President Trump's federalization of Washington, D.C. to crack down on crime and homelessness 49% to 45%. Let's move on to Special Attorney Ed Martin's investigations. Senator Adam Schiff is launching an investigation into J.D. Vance's security detail raising the water levels of Ohio's Cedar Creek Lake while Vance was kayaking so that the Secret Service could use motorized boats as part of the security detail. Adam Schiff himself is still under 2 investigations, one for mortgage fraud and the other for his involvement in the Trump-Russia hoax. Special Attorney Ed Martin said there's more to come on Adam Schiff, and Martin was spotted outside New York Attorney General Letitia James' house as part of his criminal mortgage fraud investigation on her. Lastly, Martin indicated that he and his team are investigating the January 6th committee members for destroying evidence. Martin explained, Pam Bondi has let us loose, and when this comes out, it will take the whole of these people's hoaxes down. We're doing it bit by bit. And he said, trust me, a lot of people did not get a pardon that were involved in the select committee. They ought to be keeping an eye on their mailbox because there's a lot to be asked about. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Big Fork Brands. Let me tell you about them quick. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost, but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brands pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. Secretary of State Marco Rubio halted visitor visas for individuals from Gaza to conduct a review of the vetting process, citing evidence from congressional offices that some organizations facilitated these visas, particularly for medical humanitarian purposes, have ties to terrorist groups like Hamas. He expressed concerns not only about the visa recipients, but also about adults accompanying children. The Texas House failed to reach a quorum to pass the redistricting map because the Democrats had not returned, and Governor Greg Abbott had to call a second special session. Missouri is planning a special session of the legislature to pass a pro-Republican 2026 congressional map, and California Governor Gavin Newsom admitted his bid to gerrymander California may fail, with 64% of voters wanting the independent commission to draw the districts, not Newsom and Democrat lawmakers. U.S. Treasury data shows that Trump's second term has the second fastest real wage growth at the start of the new administration on record. This is only 0.1% below the first place term, which happens to be Trump's first term. A federal court has ruled that President Trump may resume the dismantling of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, overruling an activist judge's block. Lastly, a federal grand jury criminally indicted the mayor of New Orleans, LaToya Cantrell, for corruption. That's all I have for today. I'll be back with another update soon. Until then, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast, and follow me on Instagram and X at Shades of Jade Pod. Thank you for listening and have a great day.